we did it. But as always, we require some kind of external validation. People need to tell us that we exist. And can people hear you? Can I get a sound check from you, mystery guest? There you go. That should do.
There we go.
You can hear. Oh, I see. Yeah, turn that off, man.
Let me mute it. You let me mute it.
Yeah, you're gonna go into some kind of spiral and tear
It's too
apart the
interesting.
fabric of the universe.
It's too interesting. I can't.
Well,
not
and
watch.
if you watch that, then you could get some tips of what kinds of things you're going to answer in the future. No, that's not how this works. Oh no, I have to reactivate Nightbot. Oh, Nightbot. I will totally reactivate Nightbot. Nightbot is the thin purple line that protects us.
The thin purple line.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll totally enable Nightbot. Go ahead, Nightbot. Nightbot online. Are you under a chair? Sergio Botero asks.
No, it's an antique bed.
With like some kind of like fabric along the top and banisters on the sides, and
it's very elaborate and ridiculous. One of these days I'll put my house is full of antiques and weird stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you mentioned that last time we chatted, right?
Yeah, I think I had my mummy cases behind me then.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So this time it's my monstrous bed.
Yeah. Well, how's it going, man?
Good. I can't complain. How about you?
Really good. Well, I mentioned this. I mean, people have noticed that I've been not as active on my YouTube channel, and that's mostly because I've been traveling like a maniac. I was in, Hawaii and Alabama and California and Texas and the Caribbean and Australia and on and on and on. And I feel like I've been traveling nonstop. And so, but I don't have any more travels now for another 3 months until we've got the Costa Rica trip. And then in June, we're going to be together
Yes.
for the first time at Joshua Tree. We're going to be hanging out with people and watching the night sky with a whole bunch of telescopes. So that's
Yes.
All-Stars party.
All-Stars party. Yep.
So definitely check that out if you want. Go to astrotours.co. We will. You can find out more information about the All-Stars party. I'm going to be there. Skylius is going to be there. Dr. Pamela Gay, Paul Sutter,
Me.
John.
You can come and
JMG.
hang out with me.
Yeah. So this is our open space, of course. This is where we just chat with each other and with you about stuff that's been percolating in your brains, new pieces of news. You guys set the agenda. We will use that as a jumping off point to talk about the things that interest you. So hit us up. You can see good old Nightbot has shown us what the question looks like. And that's a great way to get my attention as I'm looking at all of the chat that's going by. But go ahead. Let us know what you want to hear about. So what has been gripping your imagination in the last couple of weeks?
Ultima Thule.
Yeah.
That has been the one that I've been at the edge of my seat about. Just waiting for more pictures to come down. And well, I was on the same live stream you were with Dr. Rady. And it was just exciting. It was a great way to spend New Year's. But now I'm just waiting for more images, and I guess we're gonna have images coming through for a very long time now. But that's been what's captured my attention.
Yeah, it's an amazing object to see. This contact binary, these two little ice blobbies that had rotated around each other and merged together into this space dumbbell peanut, and to see and just to know that this is like the most distant object that human beings have explored, and it's just the beginning, right? We are it's just a tiny fraction of the total amount of data that's going to be coming back to Earth over the next 20 months is how long it's going to take. So
yeah, and we're going to have data about the geology, which I'm particularly interested in, because these types of objects tend to have organics, and it'll be interesting to see, the chemical profile of the object. because that has implications on the origins of life, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they found organics on the surface of Pluto, Charon. They found similar structures on 67P, which Rosetta saw. I mean, it really feels like these things are everywhere, which again comes back to this question, like, where is everything? If we can find all of the building blocks all over the universe for life, it's amazing that we haven't found them yet. But we'll keep
it really is. But I mean, that's one thing that in the next 25 years, I think will change. We'll either find a microbe or something like that at Europa, or maybe a signal. One never knows.
Yeah.
But I think within 25 years, we'll have found something, some indicator.
25 years?
I think about 25 years. I'm betting. I have no reason to say that other than just as betting on it. But it just seems to me that there's enough stuff going on. Well, another aspect of this would be the scientists that are looking into like the Miller-Urey experiments, where they wanted to see just how does life form. And I think eventually, a microbe will come out of a test tube, and then we will be able to say, well, this is easy or it's really hard. And if it turns out that it's really easy, then we can look at the universe and say, yeah, probably everywhere.
It's probably everywhere. And then, of course, where is it? But,
right.
We don't need to debate the Fermi paradox again.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Jorn Albert is asking, oh, wait, Zachary Fluke says, someone doesn't know who JMG is. Oh, man, I guess I should do that. Right, of course. Who are you?
Me? I am a science YouTuber and an author, science fiction author. Effectively, that's it.
Well, we were talking about this before, right? Obviously, John Michael Godier has one of the best channels on YouTube. He's prolific, produces tons of amazing videos about exactly the kinds of stuff that I'm totally interested in. So many that I don't have time to watch even a fraction of his videos, but I see the topics and I'm like, oh, that would be a great video to watch if I had the time. Extrasolar life and a lot of the interesting research that comes up in the nooks and crannies, which is the same kind of stuff that I'm really fascinated in. Not the stuff that's going to get a lot of play, although you do after that stuff as well. But I think you do a great job of tracking down some of the original research reports and studies and stuff, that's posted to the journals, and that's where the real meat is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I cite the papers in the videos so that people know, where the source material came from. And then I'm also a talk show host. I have a show called Event Horizon. It's the second channel. You were recently on it.
And you're killing it with that as well.
Yeah. That one definitely has worked out very well. We're very happy with Event Horizon. And as a matter of fact, my associates from that show are in the chat, I think. But that comes out every Thursday, and we're going to be doing another exhaustive 2+ hour chat with Avi Loeb this month.
Oh, great!
So that's going to be the next specifically on the topic of Oumuamua, and that will be the next one. So lots planned.
So Ghost World asks, what do you think about China's landing on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon? So how do you feel about that bold landing on the dark side of the moon of Pink Floyd?
On the dark side of the moon, I don't even like that word.
Is everyone having to work in overtime now? Like everyone in the space community, even the people that are watching this, are you having to tell your friends it's the far side, it's not the dark side, it's the far side, it's not the dark side? Yeah, you just get a little bored of bringing it up. In fact, that's exactly how I'm working on a video about this, and that's how I'm going to intro it. It's like, are you tired? Well, buckle up, because there's going to be some amazing science that's coming.
Yes, my view on it in space is the more the merrier. So the more countries that are doing science in space, the better. And I don't care who does it. So I would say congratulations, China, for landing on the far side of the moon.
Yeah,
I almost just said the dark side of the moon.
I know.
And
thanks,
so
Pink Floyd.
From that sense, it's just that where I get a little bit scared is when people want to militarize space, which I guess that's already happened.
Yeah.
But
it's already,
shouldn't go that far with
it's already well happened. It's
right,
space is as militarized as is allowed by the treaties that attempt to enforce this kind of thing, but no more.
Well, it's even we've even one of the nuclear tests may have been high enough to be in space. I'm not sure, but I know it disrupted the magnetosphere severely
Yeah.
and caused an EMP in Honolulu. But it also caused a humongous, crazy red aurora, and you can see pictures of that. But there was actually a nuclear weapon has been detonated at or near the edge of space.
So that almost broke the Outerspace Treaty. Yeah, that's the big thing the Outerspace Treaty is all about, is like no nukes in space, no nuclear weapons in space, no nuclear powered super soldiers in space, no nuclear test facilities in space, no non-nuclear but kinetic weapons in space, no methods of mass destruction in space, please.
Right.
And so you can do anything you want as long as you don't have ways to send nukes to space.
Right. I sort of have the old Star Trek view that if you're going to go to space, do it as the whole species, you know, and cooperate and do all of that sort of thing. But I mean, I'm a science fiction author. What would you expect?
Yeah.
So it's so for me, I'm keenly watching it, and then I hope they're completely successful in their science.
In fact, I think the sun. I think the sun is a straight up violation of the Outer Space Treaty.
The sun, giant reoccurring fusion reaction is probably in violation.
Yeah.
As is much of the universe.
Much of the universe is in a direct violation of the Outer Space Treaty.
Yep.
It's just, I think watch out, space. We're going to, in the future, demilitarize you.
Yes.
Disarm
the sun.
You have this great thought, right? Like, let's all go to space. If any one of us goes to space, we've all gone to space. If China has gone to space, then humanity has gone to space.
That's correct.
And humanity is crawling around on the far side of the moon right now.
Right now, and as well as Mars. So I mean, we have active probes. Let's see, where do we have active probes right now?
The Parker Solar Probe on its way to the sun. You've got Bepi Colombo on its way to Mercury. You've got you've got Hayabusa, which is at Ryugu. You've got OSIRIS-REx, which is at Bennu. You've got just all manner of spacecraft which are crawling or orbiting Mars. Everything you still got the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter at the moon. You've got the Chinese lander, and now the Chinese orbiter that's at the far side of the moon. You've got Juno at Jupiter, and you've got New Horizons, which is on its way out. Of course, you've also got the Voyagers, which we're seeing
they're still going. I don't think the Pioneers are.
No, the Pioneers are dead.
Yeah, I think those are dead.
Yeah,
but the Voyagers are still active, and then of course New Horizons is looking for a new target, possibly.
Yeah.
So we could get more out of that probe. Yet another Kuiper Belt object.
Yeah, but do you think that, the Chinese have said that it is absolutely their ambition to send humans to the moon. They have a plan. They are executing on that plan. This is another step in the plan. If you look at their logo, it is a human footstep in the moon. Right? That is their, the whole program is to send human beings to the moon. Do you think that if they actually do set foot on the moon, does this cause, people are saying it's a new space race, or do you think that other countries will just cede, America already did it, man. Who cares? It's already done. There's already, by all means, go and visit the flags that are already there.
That's exactly right. And ultimately, I don't think that the moon holds much industrial value. People talk about helium-3 and all that, but I'm pretty skeptical of that would be worth it. So there's not really anything on the moon that's useful industrial-wise, and I don't know that it's has any sort of strategic use. So to me, it's just planting flags. And I don't care who plants a flag on it, just as long as I don't remove mine.
Right.
Leave all artifacts in place.
You guys get the credit. You did it. You pulled it off. We tip our hats to you, America.
Well, we needed Canada for it and the shuttle program, So
Sure. You got a few of our best astronauts, a bunch of robotic arms. We're glad to help.
Very large robotic arms. I've seen one.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
but when you look at what's happening, say, even with the International Space Station, right? The Americans are considering abandoning that in the mid 2020s, 2024, 2028 at the latest.
Right.
You've got the Chinese building their version of the space station, their
Yes.
international station, bringing on entrants from dozens of other countries. They could be the only game in town in 10 years.
Well, I don't know. I think I think definitely I think you're going to see more players because you also have other countries like India that
Yeah.
are, turning their eyes towards the sky and saying, okay,
Yeah, I mean,
you
did
know,
you see they've got plans for sending three humans to space and then in a few years?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll do it, they've got their own launch platform. So and I think that they're going to do interesting things because, I sometimes I'll attend space development conferences and you see some of the plans that are coming out of, groups in India. They are amazing.
Hmm.
So, and they're very far reaching, they want space stations and things like that.
Yeah.
So again, the more the merrier.
Yeah, I mean, they have a fully uh, self-built rocket, whole space industry. They launch rockets every year. They've sent probes to Mars, and more in the works. And now they're working on building human spaceflight capability, just like the Chinese did. Um, a couple of people are mentioning, right? Israel is building a
Yes.
rover. One of my favorite projects is this private lunar lander that's going to be going to the moon in just a couple of months, as soon as the next Falcon Heavy flies. Someone mentioned, right, there's a Japanese mission at Venus, or on its way to Venus. So it's a very international space sort of solar system now when we rattle through all of those missions.
It is, and it gives us tons more missions to watch.
Yeah.
Because you remember, it used to just be, everything was JPL, and you might have one thing every year or two or three. Now there's something to look forward to in space exploration every few months,
Yep.
and this is only going to get even more interesting because not only do you have nation state entities, you also have private entities like Elon Musk that he's going to have to do a lot of science on Mars to do what he plans,
Yeah.
and it's free
Not
science for
die.
us. Yeah,
To
exactly.
not roll people out onto the surface of Mars and watch them die horribly.
Yeah, that's the one thing we don't want to happen, although it probably will.
Yeah.
If you start sending BFRs every month to Mars, something bad's going to happen. But something bad happens on air travel. So,
Yeah.
and the further you go along, the safer it gets.
I saw a couple of questions about the James Webb Space Telescope for you. What do you think? Would you take James Webb, knowing sort of all the delays, but what its capability is going to be, or 5 Hubble Space Telescopes?
James Webb.
Really?
And the reason for that is James Webb is a much, much bigger aperture. So you have a much bigger, collective mirror than Hubble has. Um, but now, if you said I could have a visible light Hubble Space Telescope the size of James Webb, I would go for
I
that.
didn't say that. No.
But if it's just 5 more Hubble Space Telescopes, no. But I would do it for 5 Kepler spacecraft because
Oh,
if I
yeah.
could look at different parts of the sky with that level of precision and detail, enough interesting stuff and outright weird stuff showed up in the Kepler light curves that I would take that over
Yeah.
JWST. That said, I'm very excited about James Webb, and particularly in relation to what it could do as far as studying exoplanet atmospheres. Um, but it ultimately, it has that pall hanging over it. So my fingers are
Yeah.
crossed, and I admit that I'm extremely worried. But
It,
once it gets there, it's going to be valuable,
yeah.
really valuable.
Yeah, I'm just working on a new video about the signatures workshop. I don't know if you
Hmm.
read through the final
Yep.
document from that. And
Hmm.
one sort of interesting little takeaway that I saw in there was James Webb could determine pollutants in the atmosphere of an Earth-sized world around another star,
Right.
with 2 days of integration time.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
CFCs, which are, for anybody that's not aware, CFCs are the ozone destroying industrial chemicals that damaged Earth's ozone, and we had to effectively ban them, or at least the use of them in spray cans back in the 80s. And those are only industry can make them, and they are detectable.
yeah,
So they stand out as our best chemical techno signature or biosignature.
yeah.
Either way, it's a techno signature, not a biosignature, and it would be a dead ringer. Whereas if you saw an exoplanet that just had lots of oxygen and methane, you can say, well, that could be a biosphere. A biosphere is a good candidate, but you can't go any further than that because that can also be abiotic in origin. So the CFCs are a good one because that you're not going to find that except with a civilization, and it would be a civilization that's probably doing some damage to itself, because it's a pollutant. Or they might be doing the opposite. They may have filled the atmosphere with CFCs because they also happen to be an extremely powerful greenhouse gas.
Right.
So if you wanted to terraform a planet, you might use that method. In which case, that would be easily seen if you looked at an exoplanet that had a lot of CFCs in the atmosphere.
Thanks, Mind of the North Star, for the $10 donation. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, no, this. I've wrapped up the video. We're just going to shoot it tomorrow. But it's very interesting to sort of see what that next round. Another thing that I pulled out of that, and again, I don't know if you saw this, was that like we can't detect electro, like radio emissions coming from another civilization yet. We can only detect if they're actually targeting us with their communications. But
Right.
with the square kilometer array, which is going to be coming in the mid 2020s,
Yep.
we will be able to detect just their random emissions from them, like the amount of leaked radio transmissions from Earth that would be detectable by the square kilometer array to dozens of light years away from us. So
Right.
suddenly you just listen to space and hear alien TV shows.
Essentially, if they're within, what is the radius, like 100 light years, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's, that it will definitely up the ante as opposed to, targeted radio telescope work. But I don't know, how likely is it, it goes back to the Fermi paradox. How likely is it that someone is within 100 light years?
Yeah.
Um,
But
and then we also,
the 2 square kilometer array.
true, or build one in space.
Or build one in space.
But you also have things like TESS. TESS, if you to go to another technosignature, transiting megastructure, TESS could possibly detect that. And as it turns out, I didn't realize this. I thought TESS could only look pretty close in, but apparently it does take data from things that are further out. So you might get more information on things like Tabby Star from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see that. And then I guess, what else? Another thing that's been interesting me lately is Oumuamua, obviously, which there was an interesting paper since we last talked. Interesting paper that seems to explain it, on that space erosion, essentially in the interstellar medium, can conceivably cause something to become elongated.
Oh, interesting. Okay, right. So you're talking about the shape of Oumuamua, which is like has a 10-to-1 length to width ratio that people have described it as cigar shaped or rendezvous with Rama shaped, right? And so
Right.
you're saying that some kind of interstellar grinding through of dust could do this?
Yeah, grinding of dust, and the paper had an interesting side effect in that this apparently, and I don't really understand the mechanism for this, but apparently it also would explain why there was no outgassing scene. Yeah, it's something along those lines. So it was an interesting paper, but I haven't fully digested it yet, and it's something I want to make a video on.
Oh, that's cool.
But but it just came out a few days ago.
I'll give you first crack at it then. I won't jump in. It's not. I know Avi Loeb just did another paper on it, but he
Yeah.
was talking about that one of those should crash into the sun every 30 years or so, and a
Hmm.
few should come within the orbit of Mercury every 30 years or so. So they actually should be. We should see another one. Like now is the time to get ready for the next one. That we should be able. We can expect one within the next couple of decades. Now that we have the technology to find them.
It's interesting because this also is there's the comet problem, the interstellar comet problem. We've never seen an interstellar comet, which there's no reason they wouldn't be extremely common. But we've never seen one on a hyperbolic orbit
I
coming
thought
through
we.
the
I
solar
thought
system.
they were detected.
No, I don't think not. Well,
Okay.
exocomets have been.
Yeah.
They've
No, but
actually
I thought
seen
an
them.
interstellar comet has been detected, and
Well,
that it
there
was.
were two. There are
Yeah.
two candidates that are captured comets, maybe. Um, that I think they think Jupiter captured that may have once been to interstellar comets. But as far as an actual fresh, comet, bright comet coming through the solar system on a hyperbolic orbit, I don't think they've never seen that. And obviously, we've been looking at comet orbits for 300 years since Edmund Halley, so that's a little
Hmm.
conspicuous. But this new paper may actually explain that the erosion process in the interstellar medium pretty much just shreds them. So they're
Thank you, FIFO Fast. Appreciate that. So Space TV asks, what does JMG personally think is the most interesting mystery in the universe? What's the mystery that you find most fascinating?
interesting mystery of the universe. Well, broadly, it would be alien civilizations, but specifically, the one that interests me the most, I would have to say, still is KIC 8462852 because even though it appears to be dust, there's no good explanation. And
Really? You don't
yeah,
think the
that one.
dust explanation? Like, have you talked to the researchers? They don't.
Yeah, I mean, what it is, it clearly is dust because it shows that in its light profile. But as to what that dust is doing seems different from any other star. And until we find another one that's doing this, it's going to be a pretty apparently unique phenomena. So that one's still holding my interest.
Yeah.
But oh, I know one. I do have a favorite, whether Planet Nine exists or not.
Oh, that's a good one.
And
Yeah.
that's the reason I like that one is because I think we're going to know within a year or two. Um, because they're zeroing in on it, and they're again. It seems like every month another paper comes out that shows orbital peculiarities that seem to suggest that something's out there.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I find that so fascinating is because when you think about it, a very very distant planet from the sun, way out there, like Planet Nine would be, that could be something that migrated out there. Maybe it's the solar system's missing super Earth, or maybe it's a captured object, in which case an alien planet is sitting out there, not native to the solar system, that joined it. And I can't think of anything more. I can't think of anything that fires the imagination more than that.
Yeah.
That this thing could be out there, and it may not be from here.
And I know that Mike Brown just did wrapped up an observing session. He was actually in Hawaii when I was there, but he was busy, searching for Planet Nine. Um,
Right.
and he had good weather, I believe. So they are still scanning the skies, looking because it should be detectable by the biggest telescopes in the world. It's just you have to know exactly where to look.
Exactly where to look. But then we also have sky surveys and such, so we've probably photographed it already. It's
Yeah,
probably
it's
somewhere.
there.
Um, it's just you don't know where to look, and they seem to be zeroing in on where to look more. But even if they don't find it, then the LSST will.
Yes.
So when you've got that kind of a sky survey and computers that can sit there and analyze, you don't have to do it like Clyde Tombaugh back in the day, where you had to use a blink comparator to see
Yeah.
any movement, and then he finally finds Pluto that way. Now you can use computers and scan all kinds of images for any slight movement, and that'll be the that'll be what gets it if it's there. And there's also talk about a planet 10 too, if you remember that one. That
No.
yeah, there's a
Beyond
there's a
Planet
planet.
9, there's a Planet
Yeah,
10.
there are some indicators, although they're much weaker, as I recall. It's been a long time since I read the paper, but there are indicators that may be more than one large object out there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It doesn't seem like an incomprehensible idea. It is, the solar system is a great big place, but it seems more and more unlikely that you would get these objects collecting large amounts of mass in those vast reaches out there. Um,
Well,
and
that's why it's interesting because if it's a captured planet, that it could have completely different chemistry and makeup to Earth. And
yeah,
what happens if it's got radioactive heating in the core and it has a subsurface ocean?
I mean,
It
I
can
mean,
go
this
anywhere with
idea
it.
that Pluto seems to have some kind of subsurface ocean
Hmm.
that probably many of the large moons out there do. There could be actually hundreds of objects in the solar system with a large subsurface ocean, like we think there is at Europa
Yeah.
or Enceladus. That these things are actually a lot more common than other places out there.
Yeah, and that was one of the delights of the decade for me was that Pluto turned out to be so weird with potential liquid water under ice, but also organics, organic chemistry, and just presented every kind of mystery you can think of for this object that you would have thought of as just probably just a frozen wasteland. But no, it's very interesting world in its own right,
Yeah,
which means we need to give it back its planet status. It paid off and gave us a great show, so it deserves its planet status
that's it.
back.
That's where you stand.
Yes,
You're in your Pluto deserves to be a planet.
yes. I am defining a planet as if it's interesting enough to be a planet, it's a planet. Which
I think
means
that's
it's
that's as legit a scientific method as anything that's been proposed up to this point.
well. What bothers me though is people are going to say, "Well, can we demote Mercury or something?" And I don't want to get into
Right.
the politics of demoting Mercury's planethood. Uh,
Mercury is interesting. Checkmate.
yeah, you can make the argument that any object in the solar system is interesting, but
So if something's small and maybe even orbits another, so right. So let's make Europa a planet because it's
okay,
interesting. Enceladus
yes,
too, and I like Iapetus, so I want that to be a planet as well. But I do think,
yes,
I mean, the point is that it's all arbitrary. Who cares? Let's not fight. They're all just
one
wonderful places that need to be explored, and let's not have a fight.
you could say that the Uranus system has only one planet because its moons there's not so much going on with them
Right. But Miranda.
except and Oberon. I think Oberon is a liquid water candidate
Mm.
too, but not a very good one. Um, that's an ignored planet, really. It's nobody ever really wants to go to it. Um,
To Uranus?
yeah, to Uranus is
Well, and
anybody
Neptune.
planning?
I
Yeah, and
mean,
Neptune, and the thing about Neptune is got Triton, which was a shocker back in what was that
yeah.
1989 when it was found to have geysers, just spewing material into space. Um, but yeah, they don't really get a lot of attention, and also I think they're kind of hard to get to. If you're, it's not that much different than New Horizon going to Pluto. You have to
Yeah.
wait a long time.
Yeah, I think that is the highest priority is to, if I was to pick a place for the next big flagship missions to go, it would be some kind of flyby of Uranus, Neptune, or both, orbiter.
Yeah.
Uh, l-
Well, there's a lot we don't know about those two planets,
yeah,
and they represent an entire class of planet. They're not a gas giant, they're not a terrestrial planet, they are an ice giant.
yeah,
Um, so that in itself is interesting because you're going to have all kinds of different dynamics, and clearly weird stuff goes on at Neptune because it has weather. Voyager, you know, showed that it had a dark spot on it, and white clouds and all this stuff, and that dark spot has since disappeared. So it's not like Jupiter's great red spot. It was something transient.
Uranus has been rolled over onto its side. As you said, something flipped their positions in the solar, as we discovered in our collaboration. The moons are so weird. All of it. All of it are places that ought to be visited, and we need to get on that. Titan or bust, say people
Titan
in
or
the
bust.
chat.
Well, Titan, that's a different story entirely. We need dedicated missions to that world.
Sean Marston is asking, what do you guys think of Project Breakthrough Starshot or any plans to get to Alpha Centauri? Now, I just did a video on Project Dragonfly, which is a serious attempt to send a probe to Alpha Centauri, but like a big one that can actually brake on its way to Alpha Centauri. Using a mag sail to slow itself down through the interstellar medium. So what do you think? I mean, I feel like I got beat up in doing this video. Like a lot of the comments were like, graphene monolayer for your solar sail, superconducting wire that's 30,000 meters long, 100 megawatt laser. These are all ridiculous. And I should have gone into it saying, like, if I know we want to go to another star system, I know Star Trek and Star Wars have told us that you just get in your spaceship and you just fly and there you are. But like the most practical possible mission that we can imagine still takes 100 years and requires us to develop new methods of power generation, new material science, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That at the very is beyond the very limits of what we can do, and that's still going to take 100 years to get to the nearest star.
It's not something I expect to see. I mean, I expect to see somebody's going to send a mission, but it's not something that I expect to see the fruits of. The only way it's really going to be earth-shakingly interesting, other than human civilization going to another star system, is if there's a planet involved. And other than that, it's you can pretty well imagine what a star is like. We live next to one.
Yeah. I would assume that we would have mapped out the planets. We know where they are. We've done direct imaging. We know where those planets are. We know how massive they are. Maybe we've even mapped out some rough continents, atmospheric things like that. Like we know it's important.
Yeah. The thing that's another thing about James Webb is that we can look at things like, get some kind of an idea of like Proxima B and do some studies and try to characterize that planet. And then I don't know, does the Alpha Centauri system itself, the double star, is that a candidate for
no planets have been found yet?
Yeah.
But it seems likely that they could be. So, and they thought they had discovered them, and then further evidence said it wasn't correct.
That's right. That's what I'm remembering.
Yeah.
It didn't pan out. But at the same time, if they're terrestrial planets, they're really, really hard to detect, even though they're close. So if that system doesn't have any gas giants or anything, we may not spot them.
Yeah. But I guess I wish that I had been more, just to set people's standards, because I almost feel like my job is to be Buzz Killington, right? And I'm like, and it's funny because when I started down this field, when you go back to the early episodes of Astronomy Cast, I'm the enthusiastic noob going, couldn't we? What about? Why not? And Pamela is like, well, this is what's realistic. This is what the science tells us. This is what's possible. And you just kind of, and over time, as you learn what's possible and you watch the reality unfold, it is clear that sci-fi has ruined us. Right. You're a science fiction writer. This is your fault.
It is. It's my fault. And it's going to get worse because as we realize certain things from sci-fi are just not possible, they've aged out of possibility. And a lot of those ideas, things like Star Trek world or whatever, like, they're just not realistic sci-fi anymore because we know too much about the science. But now that science moves forward and we learn more and we know what's not possible, other things become possible in sci-fi. So, for example, um, no, you're not going to find a spacecraft warping into our star system and firing phasers or something like that. No, you're not going to see that. But what you might see is a von Neumann probe sneaking into the solar system, shows up and starts 3D printing out aliens to interact with us. So you just you just pick a
Yeah,
different area, and in 50 years, people will say, "Well, that's silly," but
I
it's
love that
printing out.
idea. Just 3D print them.
Yeah, just 3D print out. Don't actually travel to the stars yourself.
Yep.
Just 3D print yourself once you get there, and you could make copies of yourself,
Yeah.
and so you could have one alien on his home planet whose essence or memories or everything are stored in a von Neumann probe, and he comes out and it gets printed out on another planet. Therefore, he exists in two places at once, more or less,
Yeah.
in a roundabout way.
I like that idea a lot. And that's sort of, the idea for a generation ship. Like instead of sending people to live and die, send a spaceship that just sort of gestates living creatures
Just
when it
states.
arrives at its destination, right? Although it's all still pretty creepy.
It is, but I like the idea of the generational ship where you hollow out an asteroid or
Hmm.
something like that, because if it's big enough, it's its own community. It doesn't really, you don't need a planet. You just need a city or something like that, and people could just exist in there. As a matter of fact, I think there was a recent episode of the Orville where they
Yeah.
they had everybody had forgotten that they were even on a
Yeah.
generational ship.
Well, isn't that Earth, right? Earth
Hmm.
is a spaceship floating in space,
Hmm.
self-contained. Uh, we don't seem too existentially depressed that we've been brought into this world to live and die on a rock floating in space. It's really just comes down to the size. Like how much luxury do you have on your spaceship planet? And that's when you decide that you really, you feel. But if it's a small place where you know that you're just going to live and die on the journey to Alpha Centauri, and every moment is spent trying to fix machinery and run from psychotic robots,
Yeah.
that you would feel a little mad that your forefathers had set this up for you.
Well, there's other ways you could do it too. One way, you know, here's another good one about outdated sci-fi. Suspended animation. They would always put people in suspended animation, and that looks like it would never be possible the way it was depicted in sci-fi. But what you might be able to do is instead of putting someone in suspended animation, you kill them.
Hmm.
Kill them and freeze them, and then bring them back to life when you get to the destination.
Right.
So you would actually be you're on the duration of your journey, you would be dead. Um, I said, but
No.
it's true. Yeah, it would actually might
Yeah,
be
like
easier
like
to do
like
that.
the problem, right, is you freeze the human, like you freeze a living body, then the ice crystals form in the cells and everything dies. But if you
Yeah,
swap out that ice, that water that we are bags of mostly, then with something else like formaldehyde or some kind of
something that doesn't.
radioactive goo,
Yeah, doesn't
then
allow. Well, that's actually another problem with it is that if you put somebody in suspended animation over time, the natural radioactive elements in the human body, isotopes, you would actually reach a fatal dosage from your own body. So, I think there's a calcium, some one of them.
right,
So you actually can't do it because of you yourself are slightly radioactive.
right. So you have to
And
swap out, you have to 3D print out all of those elements or continuously replace them with
right,
new versions. The nanobots are going to be replacing all of your calcium, which is radioactive.
yeah, you would have to because your body, if it's not self repairing, which it's doing constantly while you're in normal state, If it's not doing that, then things like cumulative exposure become a problem over thousands of years. Um,
That's
but
funny.
yeah,
And even if
so
you're frozen and you're not experiencing existence, your atoms are still going to have their half life, so they're still going to do their thing.
yeah, so there's nothing. The actual material you're made up of will continue to experience time. Um, so you have that issue now. One way around it, though, around all of this, is to just dramatically extend the human lifespan. If you live to be 100,000 years old, 5,000 year journey is not that long. So that's the real way to do it, is just make it to where humans live dramatically longer than they do. And I don't think we're very far from that, to be honest. I think we're a lot closer to leaps in life extension than a lot of people realize.
Mr. E of Planet Earth says, I've yet to read a GMJ book. Any recommendations? Which book should a person pick up of yours first?
It depends on what mood you're in, because one of them is a fun space opera called The Salvagers. So if you're just looking for a fun read, I like to think this one is a fun read. If you want something a little bit, if you want to have an existential crisis and spend a week worrying about whether the universe is a simulation or not, then go with this one, which is called Supermind. And this is the newer book.
Spoiler alert, is the universe a simulation?
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep.
So there you go. If you thought that you're living in a simulation, turns out you are.
Yes. Although I personally, I'm a little bit skeptical that it is.
Oh, no. Just in your, yeah. I don't.
But in the book, I pretend that the universe is in fact a simulation.
Right. Peppa Pig is asking, how does the SOFIA Telescope work? Have you had a chance to see the SOFIA Telescope, the one that's on the side of an airplane for NASA?
Oh, that one. No, I don't know much about it, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. It's something I have not looked deeply into yet.
So it's a 747, and they've got a great big infrared telescope that is on the side of the airplane, and it's in this really cool kind of gimbaled mount. And then the airplane takes off, and it flies for hours and hours and hours, sort of does a pattern over the Pacific Ocean, or if it's operating out of Australia, I think New Zealand, then it does a pattern over the Pacific from there. And it is performing the kind of work that a space telescope would do. It gets high up into the atmosphere, gets a minimum amount of atmospheric disturbance, and does these big, long observations of various things. They've used it for seeing transits of various planets. They've done a ton of observations with it. It's a great idea, and it's sort of a way to get a space telescope for a fraction of the price. I had an opportunity a couple of years ago to go for a flight on it, and timing didn't work out. But I would love to try it. It sounds amazing to sort of be a part of that. And we did a live stream. We did an episode of the Weekly Space Hangout where the astronomers, were at the SOFIA Telescope. Sort of the airplane was in the background while they were having the chat with us. It's amazing.
That reminded me, during the solar eclipse in 2017, I had a camera trained on the eclipse at full totality, and I actually was trying to get like Regulus. You could see that star in full when it was fully blocked. I got home and I looked at the footage, and I had caught a plane passing right across the face of the sun. And then I spent a good 2 weeks talking with the principal investigator for NASA's solar eclipse chasing planes to figure out if I actually captured it or not. And it turns out it couldn't have been it. It actually
just some other airplane.
It actually, I think it was an F-15.
Oh, really?
It was the profile was a twin jet like that. But it wouldn't be surprising. There's Air Force bases all over here.
Right. But there was also a lot of, I know there was some like private jets and stuff that were doing private flights. And if it happened where you were, then it could be someone who was actually on a tourist trip to be able to actually see the eclipse from the air. Because I know there was some, if you're on an airplane when the eclipse is happening and you're going in the direction of it, you can see longer. Because you get to stay in the totality path for a longer period of time, which is kind of a neat idea.
Yeah, that's actually something that I might consider for the upcoming total solar eclipse.
The one in South America.
Yeah, no, not that one. The one in North
Oh,
America in
2024.
2024,
Yeah.
and by some um, by some complete stroke of luck, I lived in the path of totality for the 2017 eclipse,
Wow.
and I only had to go to get full totality. I only had to go, just a few miles down the
Oh,
road.
that's amazing.
But my state also will be in totality for that eclipse in 2024.
Right.
So I won't have to drive very far for that either.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go far. I went to Illinois for the 2017 one in Carbondale, and we were like
Yep.
mostly clouded out. So I got like 5 seconds of totality, and
Right.
then the exit side of it. But 2024, I think um, we're gonna go to Texas somewhere. I haven't figured
Yeah.
that out
See,
yet.
as the crow flies, I was just not far at all from where you were. I was just across the river in Missouri,
Yeah.
and Missouri, down, the very southern tip, the boot heel, is going to experience totality again. So I'll probably watch it down from there. I got lucky though in 2017 because I had that same weather, and it just happened to clear right in time, and so I got the full totality. And I have to admit, I'm addicted to totality now, having experienced it.
That's the thing, right? I talked to a lot of people that could have seen totality, and they're like, "Well, we saw a lot of it, and we just like went outside and looked up." But that's like not the same. That is like
Right.
listening to Star Wars as opposed to watching Star Wars.
I had looked at eclipse photography and photographs since I was a kid. 30 plus years of photographs. Not a single one of them did it justice. I was like, oh my god, now I know why this
Yeah,
scared the bejesus out of ancient people.
yeah. They stopped their wars.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was unsettling, and it felt like the solar system, which usually you see with detachment, but that particular time it came down to you, and seemed very tangible and real. Um, but yeah, I didn't even notice that plane though at the time. And anybody that wants to see that video, by the way, I put that up on my
oh, that's
channel.
great.
It's there somewhere. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, and I definitely want more totality. So
Yeah, that's the thing. You kind of get crazy for it, and you just
mhm.
travel. And there's a certain amount of like people who just travel the world, like uh, just chasing eclipses, trying to get them all into their brains. So
Even just the quality of the light
yeah,
before totality, it's almost like a black light in a
yeah.
way.
And
It's that kind of weird light. Yeah.
this sunset that occurs around the entire horizon. It's so weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had GoPros set up to capture that, and I even had sound set up trying to get the reactions of like birds and animals, and everything got a little bit discombobulated um, during the totality phase of the eclipse.
Yeah, the only animal you would have heard was a few thousand sad people where I was. People
A few thousands of sad
Yeah,
people.
just people just kind of moaning, going, "Oh," just the sound of disappointment, concentrated disappointment in the air. Max is asking, "What do you think of the Starhopper?" So it's very fast development at the moment. What do you think about the Starhopper? Hop, little Starhopper, hop. Have you seen the Starhopper?
I have not.
So the Starhopper is the new, okay. So there is the BFR, right? The big freaking rocket,
That's
and
what they're
they're
calling it
calling.
now.
And so the future version is now called the Starship,
Hmm.
and the booster is called the Super Heavy. And so they're building a prototype like the Grasshopper that will test the vertical takeoff and landing for the Raptor engines and the actual spacecraft. And so people are, they are absolutely building this prototype in Texas, and you can see that it's being covered in stainless steel. It's got three little Raptor engines popping out the bottom,
Hmm.
and in theory, we are weeks away from it hopping.
I was shocked to see the stainless steel.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at Elon's Twitter periodically, and he's posting photos of it, and it's sort of doesn't look like a spacecraft to me yet, but it doesn't look like something that'll fly, but apparently it's going to.
It looks like a water tower with a nose cone with tubes coming out the side, but it is like the purpose is to test the feasibility of the idea. So
Right.
it doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to take off, hover, land.
Right.
It will test the flight characteristics. Well, I won't even be going that fast, right? So it's going to test those rockets and the flight hardware to make sure that the computers can control those rockets, the Raptor engines, which haven't been used yet. So
Right. They were built specifically for this.
yeah.
Although they certainly were impressive. I saw some tests of the Raptor. Now that uses a different fuel too. That's unique.
It
remember.
uses methane.
Yeah.
And the future idea is that you have this big methane plant that just pulls carbon dioxide, mixes it with water, makes methane, and pumps it into your fuel. So the whole thing will be carbon neutral. It will be powered by solar power essentially, because you'll have big solar panels that are pulling in the carbon dioxide and making the rocket fuel.
Yeah.
So it
And
works.
interestingly enough, it isn't just Mars. I mean, that if you start building fuel depots at Mars,
Yeah.
you can go to Europa. You could go anywhere in the solar system essentially using this vehicle.
Yeah.
And that actually interests me more because, okay, yeah, colony on Mars, but what kind of a payload could we get with a BFR out to Europa?
Oh, yeah.
Size,
A monster probe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what really excites me, is that this thing's Saturn V level powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, this spacecraft in theory, right, will be capable of just flying to the moon, landing, returning home, like just as one of the, like, if today, like, let's go to the moon. Okay. And then they off they go to the moon. So I think that, and for the price, for a few $1 million of fuel that's pulled out of the atmosphere. So it's an interesting time to be a fan of space flight.
It is. The great gutting of launch costs is SpaceX's main contribution to human civilization, is that they made it cheap. And BFR is even cheaper than, Falcon Heavy, and Falcon Heavy's cheaper than Falcon 9 pound for pound. So it's just amazing.
I think this is going to be our last question. Jameson wants to know, what are your opinions of the Event Horizon Telescope as far as the science it can provide, or any other thoughts on the project?
Well, my opinion is I've been waiting for the photo.
Yeah, people keep asking me. Spring, they say. Spring 2019, they say.
I can't wait to see it, but I have no illusions that it's probably not going to be, this is not going to look like Interstellar. It's going to look like, smudge, maybe.
A blob, yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't really put much thought into what else you could do besides an image as far as science goes. But it'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
But I mean, the blob will tell you, like scientists will look at the blob and go, okay, Einstein was right. Or they'll look at it and go, Einstein was wrong. Like, the shape of the blob will tell them if some of the predictions made by Einstein about general relativity were true or not. So it's a very important blob.
I'm sure you could figure out stuff about accretion disks too, from it, which are interesting. I mean, if you go with Kip Thorne's vision of that, which is the movie Interstellar, then it's like, what a crazy place this is, or a crazy environment. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I just don't let myself get too excited, because it's sort of a dangling carrot,
Yeah. A.V. Scott and Flower says, I keep asking you. Yes, I know. Soon, spring. I am told. I didn't take the picture. It's going to happen when it happens. The plot will tell you. All right. Well, we've reached the end of our hour. Where does the time fly? JMG, for anyone who maybe doesn't hasn't subscribed to your channel, I highly recommend everybody, the second they finish watching this, or even while they're watching this, go over to his channel, subscribe. I'll put links in the show notes, put up cards, put them in the end titles. You should totally check it out. Is there anything else super interesting that you have been working on that you think people should check out? What's a recent video that you just did?
My most recent video was on, what was my most recent video on? I can't even remember.
Isn't that hilarious that you like literally spend hours, days working on a project, and then it's just like, you.
Oh, I got it. It was on the concept of Dyson's sunflowers and how life, how he envisions life escaping from an ice shell moon like Europa. So that's the most recent video.
Very cool. And of course, you've got this whole second channel, Event Horizon, which is taking off like a rocket.
Yes, we will be back with interviews on Event Horizon this month, starting with I think Avi Loeb.
Yeah.
Which will be a two-parter. I had an exhaustive conversation with him. And
Isn't
then
he a
further
treat to talk to?
Oh, he's unbelievable. The guy's just. I would say, out of all the guests that I've had so far, he is definitely the most information dense.
Yes,
because he has so many ideas and is able to articulate those ideas in such a way that it's just fascinating to talk to him.
Yeah, he like on the one hand is one of the people who helped calculate the what we should expect to see with the Event Horizon Telescope, and on the other hand, he's thinking about laser powered probes to Alpha Centauri that he's perfectly willing to, and got a little he got a bit of a backlash for his willingness to entertain pretty interesting ideas. So he's a real treat to talk to.
He is, yep. He's definitely bold. Definitely bold.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody who watched this today. Thank you so much for the moderators. I know you had a lot of work today. That kept you pretty busy. So I really appreciate you stepping up and jumping in there. That was wonderful. James G, thank you so much, and thanks for interviewing me on your podcast. And I'm sure we'll do this again if people want it.
Absolutely. Well, you'll have to come back on Event Horizon.
Anytime, man. Anytime. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. And if there are guests that you want me to have on this, please let me know. Put them in the comments. Not in the chat because they'll be gone pretty quickly, but put them in the comments on the video after the fact, and I will try and bring on as many guests as you guys want or do these solo. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.